Could you imagine just trying to sleep in your dorm room after a stressful day at your college classes, but then your roommate is just sitting at his desk doing this? Well, I didn't want to be that roommate. Which is why today, I'm making a quiet keyboard. I think it's done. So, for today's build, the board we are going with is a SAKA68. The thing took nearly 2 years to get delivered for me off of Group Buy, and it's about another 2 years now that I'm gonna start building it. So, this thing has been sitting in my room collecting dust. It's a 68 key board. I wanna keep things small because I'm not gonna have a lot of space on my desk. We are using Helio V2 switches from Zeal PC. These things I could not find anywhere except for on Candy Keys in a 100 pack. So I bought them. It was like $140, but whatever. Those are all gonna be lubed with Krytox 205 grade 0, and then I'm putting GMK Samurai on it. Everything's gonna be soldered onto the PCB, and it's gonna look nice, and it's gonna sound nice too, because it's gonna sound like nothing at all. Okay, so the first step is to tune these switches to remove any scratchiness, and especially since these are silent switches, it's gonna make them a lot quieter as well. To open them up, I'm just using this 3D printed switch remover tool. You can buy metal ones, you can buy these plastic ones. They're dirt cheap, but they help a lot. Otherwise, you'd have to use pliers. So Zeal switches have very tight housing, so they're a little harder to take off, but you should be able to get them with a little bit of elbow grease. I know the footage is a little blurry here, but the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna take a little bit of that Krytox 205 grade 0. You don't need a lot, you just need it to coat the brush. And yeah, I did a terrible job at showing this, but this isn't a switch tuning tutorial, so just basically get the inside of the housing. You want a thin coat, not too thick. You should just be able to see it glisten in the light. Then what I like to do is take a binder clip, and this is going to hold your stem and make it super easy for you to handle in your hands. Same thing, take a little bit of that Krytox 205 grade 0 or any other lubricant of your choice. You're just going to brush the sides of the stem, the front, make sure you get those legs as well as the back, and then go underneath and get inside the housing as well, because there is dampening in there. And then finally, you're going to want to put a little bit on the top housing of the switch. This is because when the switch comes up after actuating, it actually makes contact with the top there. Oh, and also make sure that you're putting a little bit on the spring as well, because the spring, especially Zeal springs, tend to ping a lot, and you can actually hear it with your own ears. Now just put it back together and pop the top on. It should snap together nicely. Do that 67 more times, and this is what it should sound like before and after. This kit comes in a really nice box with a machined aluminum case, and this didn't ship with it. This is a piece of shelf liner that I cut specifically to fit in this case as sound dampening. I decided to go with the aluminum plate option and a PCB, or actually 3. Wait, I bought 3 PCBs? I have 3. I didn't buy 3. I only have 2 plates. Alright, well I got 3, I guess. Cool. This is a carbon fiber plate. Before we actually put this keyboard together, we need to verify that the PCB works. And to do that, we're just going to take it, plug it in, download this software called VIA, and it just basically lets you see if the switches are actuating. And to do that, you just have to bridge the electrical signal by using a pair of tweezers. So now that I verified that every single switch on this PCB is working, we can move on. The thing that really separates a custom keyboard from a store-bought one is that you can tune your stabilizers. This is probably the single biggest thing you can do when it comes to the sound of your keyboard, because they're often very, very rattly in pre-builds. To fix this, you kind of do the same thing as the switches, except you're going to want to buy this stuff called dielectric grease. It's very, very thick, and you're going to use it on the wires, but you're still going to want to use that Krytox in the housings, because the dielectric grease is so thick that it'll actually limit how much the switch can move up and down. Also, this is not a tutorial. There are dozens of those videos on YouTube, so please go look if you don't know how to do it yourself. But after you're done, you can go ahead and screw in all of your stabilizers to the PCB. And now we can get started on the real magic. Alright, so now that we've confirmed that the stabilizers aren't rattly, we're going to finish popping all these switches in. Oh no. No. There's no way. I'm one switch short. That means I gotta take all this stuff. And just like this, we have all of our switches in the board. That's everything we need. But now we just want to verify that all of the switch pins have come through the holes, because sometimes if you put them in a little crooked, they might bend backwards and you don't realize it. So when you go to solder, you want to make sure all these pins are through the holes, or else you're basically just soldering nothing and your switch won't activate. So these two are good. And now I'm just going to do that for the rest of these 67 switches. Aha, see, I found one right here. This switch pin is not through, which means it bent back. I also saw that a couple of them weren't completely pushed into place, so I popped those in. That's why you really need to make sure you're doing this step thoroughly. You have to do this step. Make sure all your switch pins are through the holes. And this can just happen in the bag, or if you like slightly put it in on an angle, sometimes that can happen. It's really not a big deal. You can bend it right back. It's a piece of metal. You can see it's in place, which means we can start to solder the switches on. Now, I recommend using one of these mats. You can get them on Amazon pretty cheap. Maybe this one's about 10 bucks. Just because sometimes when you're soldering, it's so hot, it might splatter a little bit. Not like dangerously splatter, but it can pop, it can split. It's very hot. So this helps to protect the surface that it's on. It's just a little nice way to keep everything organized. You could put some, you could, I don't know what you could put in there, but you could put little things in there. But yeah. Grab your soldering iron, and you're gonna want to set it anywhere between 350 degrees Celsius and 400 degrees Celsius. Any cooler and it might be hard to melt the solder, but any warmer and it might lift a pad off your PCB, which you do not want to do. Also, make sure that you have one of these carbon filter fans, because the smoke that comes out of the flux when you melt it is toxic and is not good to breathe in, even in small quantities. If you build one keyboard and you don't have the fan and you breathe it in, are you gonna die? No, but I wouldn't f with nature like that, so just get one to be safe. They're not expensive. If you've never soldered before, once again, this is not a tutorial. There are dozens of those on YouTube, but the process is pretty simple. Just place the soldering iron on the pin and the pad, wait a few seconds for it to heat up, and then feed the solder in. It should instantly melt. Hold it there for another few seconds so it can flow into the hole, and then take it off. Don't have the soldering iron touching the PCB for more than about 8 or 9 seconds. Remember, it is fairly difficult to kill modern electronics, but it's still possible. If you're doing this for the first time and you're scared, I promise it's harder to kill it than you think it is. So as I finish soldering the last few switches here, I want to show you one of my blunders. I don't know what happened. The backspace key worked when I tested it on the PCB, but it is not working all of a sudden. I don't know if I damaged the contact or whatever with the heat, but I jerry-rigged it. I noticed that the backspace contacts next to it for a different layout were working, so I literally just bridged it together with pieces of solder and melted the ends onto it, and I mean, it works, so. Alright, so now that our PCB is done, we're gonna start assembling. We're gonna lay down our case, followed by our foam. Then we're gonna throw the PCB right on top of that on the SAKA68. It just slots right into place. Then we are going to lower the top cover on, flip it over, and put all 10 screws into place. These things are so annoying because there's this little Allen key that you have to use, and it's very, very, very clumsy. But after a few minutes, it's all closed up. All there's left to do now is throw on our keycaps, which I've decided to go with GMK Blue Samurai. I had these sitting around and I thought it would work perfect with this black case. And now we're ready to hear the final product. So yeah, I just finished editing this video. I want to say thank you so much for watching. It doesn't sound that quiet in the sound test, but I promise you it is. It's just because the mic is so close to the keyboard. And yeah, if you like content like this, you want to see some more, you want to see my adventures in college, please subscribe. Also, please like the video. All right, goodbye.